The opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Eastlink Community TV, its sponsors, or partners.
Gwe, Jalasi, Ndelawisi Julie, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Julie Pellissier Lush. I was the past poet laureate of Prince Edward Island, and I would love to welcome you to Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. Eastlink Community TV is devoted to celebrating the rich history of the First Nations people on Epekwitk. In the coming months and weeks on this program, we will be in celebration of our culture and speaking to people who are making a difference in our communities. Now, I will let my co-host introduce himself.
Linda Luisi, Gifu Amalsiwanu, Jalasi. Hello, everybody. My traditional name is Eagle Dancer, and my non-traditional name is Richard Lush. And we're very thankful to be here today to present you Epekwitk and Voices of the Island. We're very thankful to be here today. So, Mom, let's introduce our guest.
Now, today we are so fortunate and so privileged to be able to have Novalea MacKinnon, who lives here on the eastern side of the island. She is a crafter, a mother, and she has been working at a few different jobs here in the island. And we wanted to talk to her and see what she felt life was like here on Prince Edward Island as an Indigenous woman. And I would just like to say hello, Novalea.
Hey, Julie.
Thank you so much for being our guest today. We're so excited to have you. Now we're going to start. And I was thinking, what are some of the amazing questions that we could ask you? So one of the first ones that I was thinking was, what was it like for you growing up here on Prince Edward Island?
For me, growing up on PEI, I moved a lot, but there was one thing that was always, no matter where we went, there was always like woods that I built an amazing fort in. And it was always, you come home when the street lights come on kind of thing. And I was a very free child to just roam and explore and do my own thing and play with some dinkies and mud puddles. And yeah, just a lot of time outside. It's the main thing that I remember.
It's amazing. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Novalea. Now, a lot of Indigenous cultures across Canada, there's been a lot of finding their voice and reconnecting with their culture and becoming, true to the path that the Creator has planned for each and every one of us across Turtle Island. And it's one of those things where it's where they're taking back their voice that was taken from us generations ago, not too far long ago. So this next question really revolves around that. What is it like for you to kind of reconnect with your culture, and like, how does that look like for you?
That question is huge for me. I guess for me, like even in my upbringing, I was Indigenous before it was cool to be Indigenous. I always tried to blend in, but I never fit in. And I grew up off reserve. My dad had moved here from Ontario, and I was very disconnected from the culture for a long time. I didn't even know I was Indigenous. So for me, reconnecting was like really finding that sense of belonging. And the more I spent with community, the further, like the deeper that became for me. now looking back, I wish that like my son is 6 and his sense of identity is so strong. I just can only imagine who I would have been if I had have had that strong sense of identity at such a young age. Um, but I'm grateful for my path too. Reconnecting it's interesting. Sometimes it's scary. I've gone as far as like meeting sisters and brothers that I never knew I had, to visiting my First Nation for the first time, to naming my children Indigenous words. They're named after crow and eagle in Ojibwe. So I guess once I got that sense of identity, I really held on tight and ran with it as fast as I could. And I still do every day. Every opportunity I'm given, I'll take it.
How old were you, Novalee, when you found out that you were Indigenous?
I was probably a teenager before I realized that we were Indigenous. I always knew that we were different, if you will, and then when I did find out that I was Indigenous, like my dad used to say, like, you look white, just, pretend to be white. But I never felt that. Like, I never fit in. I remember kids used to call me a witch and I was like, I'm not a witch. But there's just some things that I can't explain, and some things that they're not normal in the non-Indigenous world, but they're very normal in our world. So it's just, yeah, I'm just very grateful that I was accepted by the Mi'kmaq people here in PEI, and any teachings is still teachings. Like, they may not be a Ojibwe teachings or Chippewa teachings, but for me, we're all Indigenous, and I am beyond honored to have the Mi'kmaq teachings and to have my sons have the Mi'kmaq teachings as well.
And I've seen the pride that you have as your older little one has started doing a little bit more singing and Mi'kmaq and drumming. And maybe one day he will get to the stage and start performing. My fingers and toes are crossed, because we are all sort of hoping that he will take that big leap and just jump into it. But I've seen the pride that in your eyes when he gets a little closer. Every time that he comes to see the Mi'kmaq Heritage Actors, he gets a little closer to the stage, which is awesome. And I think this might be a good segue just to say we are going to take a short break here now, but be sure to keep watching Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. Welcome back to Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. I am Julie Pellissier Lush and my wonderful co-host Richard Lush. And we're here talking with Novalee, who is an Indigenous mother, crafter, fisherman, and as well as finding her roots. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk with her, and I'm so pleased to have her here today. And I think this segment, I really wanted to concentrate on some of the crafts that you produce. And I've been very fortunate to go to different artisan markets and see the amazing work that you create. And I was just wondering, maybe to start it off with, when did you start doing crafts, Novalee?
I have crafted since I can remember. I remember when I was like pretty young, I had like a Rubbermaid tote just full of random whatevers, and I just pull it out and start making something, anything. The Indigenous crafting, though, I don't think it started until probably in my early 30s.
Now, I sent a question for Richard to ask you just because I was thinking, I know that recently, well, not recently, I guess in the last few years, I've gone to events where not only are you producing crafts, you are also being a teacher of how to create these crafts. So, what kind of crafts do you like showing people how to make the most?
I'll teach anybody anything. If I know how to do it, I will definitely hand it on. I think the beading is probably the funnest for me. But everything kind of has a story too. Like when I do leather work, I think about the people that taught me the leather work. So I'm honored to be able to have that knowledge and then to hand it down. And then it's the same as everything. Like with the dream catchers, there's always like the thoughts of the people that taught you to do it going forward, I guess, to the people that you're teaching. But I think the beadwork is probably the most fun, and it's just because it's so colorful and bright, and your sense of creativity can be super extreme or mild. Like your personality can really show, and even just the colors that you pick.
Well, that's amazing. And thank you for sharing, and thank you for continuing to inspire anybody that will listen. You know, that's what Mom and I do all the time. Anybody that gives us a moment to let us educate a little bit, we're going to take that and capitalize on it. Now we're going to go to a little more personal question for you now. So for me, something I never got to meet my Miigaju, my grandmother, my mother's mom, Maggie. I never got to meet her. And she was a big part of who we are as Mi'kmaq people. You know, her ancestry, her family line all comes from Lennox Island First Nation. You know, that's kind of where we came from. So I never got to enjoy any good memories with her. You know, my mom got to enjoy some when she was very little, but it was something that was always kind of missing. You know, and this question kind of revolves around your dad, your father. So what are some good memories that you may have remember or want to speak about here of your father?
I think one of my favorite memories of my dad is going fishing. And I was pretty young. I was probably, people tell me I was like 2, but I don't believe them. But I could recite the entire song Fishing in the Dark because of him. And that's what we did. We got up really early. We would be in that little S10 truck and we would be gone for days just fishing and spending time together. And it's funny because I remember like all of the old country songs. As soon as they come on the radio, I get this little smirk on my face, and that's why. It's because it brings me right back to that little S10 truck just bombing around with Dad down backcountry roads, looking for our next fishing hole.
I love that. And were you ever successful at getting lots of fish while you went fishing?
There's this one spot, and I can't find it as an adult, but sometimes I wonder if it was a dream when I was little, but I remember looking over the edge of the boat, and we didn't take the boat out very often because it was very holy. But when we looked over the edge of the boat, you could see the rainbow trout, and it was like one rainbow trout met the next. And it was just the most beautiful thing, the way the sun was shining down on the water. It was stunning. But I can't find it as an adult.
And I know that there is like people are very protective of their fishing holes here and their swimming places here, that they find that they can have like a really good opportunity to fish or a good opportunity to swim without too many tourists around. But once you do find it, I would love for you to share, we won't publish it out there because I know that once you do find it, it's going to be one of those places that I'm sure you'll be returning to and bringing your boys to as they grow up. Have they ever gone fishing yet?
So Ondag he outfishes me. He is an amazing trout fisher, and he loves it. He actually got his grandfather on his father's side out for the first time in 40 years last year. So his grandfather's actually waiting for the phone call, asking him to go trout fishing again this year for opening day. But Ondig has his fish gift list. So his big thing is we all catch our limit on opening day, and we go back to his grandfather's house on his dad's side, and we clean all the trout, mostly. Last year he fell in love with two, and we had to return them to the river. But and then we go through the list. So I don't eat trout. Ondag likes to eat 1 feed of trout, and then we gift them to people in the community. So, and he loves doing it because he's getting to show off how big his trout are, and people are praising him up. So it's pretty nice.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. They learn so much when they're a part of the land and being a part of that process that, I mean, traditionally we would have hunted and fished all over this island. And also in the provinces, the prairie provinces, we did have lakes and things. So definitely. And I think this is a really good spot to say, we will take a short break here now, but be sure to keep watching Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. Welcome back to Voices of Epekwitk on Eastlink Community TV. I am Julie Pellissier Lush, and this is my wonderful co-host Richard, and we're here today visiting with Novalea MacKinnon.
Yeah, so as we progressing through this great interview with you, Novalea, we want to touch on another little question that we thought about. And, you know, we know that you're a proud winner of the Marie Kyoto Blanc Writing Award, and we're all so proud of you when you got that award. And I know you don't really talk about your writing too much, but talk to us right now about it a little bit. Tell us some things. Tell us some little bits of your story, your creation. What inspires you? I'm throwing all these different things at you right now. So you can talk whatever you want, but let's talk about writing right now.
I remember writing my first poem when I was probably 13, and I was actually in quite a dark place, as most adolescents go through. And for me, it was just like an outlet of emotion. And it went down on paper, and I remember hiding it in the back of my closet on the wall. I posted it, but it was on the wall in the back of my closet, so it couldn't really be seen. And then I didn't touch it for a long time. I took writing in high school, but and then a friend of mine, he almost died from drugs, and we were both on a really bad path at the time. And I ended up getting clean and sober, and he struggled for a few more years afterwards. And it really hurt my heart watching him trying to get there. And I just kept praying that he'd find it and hold on. But I wrote about it, and that's actually the poem that I wrote that won the award. After that, I wrote about my dad's passing, and just, I guess for me, it's like any big emotion, like those big feelings that come to me, then I make them into something pretty on paper, and that's how I deal with them.
Now, just a couple of years ago, probably around 2008, 2009, maybe, I was the editor of the Gwimu Messenger, and my job was to go out and get stories from our community members and our people that we were connected to. And I remember one day just getting this sort of email that said, hey, Jules, I wrote a story, and I read it, and it was fantastic. It was about a young girl's travels to go and get connected with somebody she really looked up to. So I thought it would be amazing if you could share that story from a long, long time ago when younger Novalea MacKinnon got to go and at least get to the house of somebody she looked up to?
Yeah, that actually started with my mom. My mom is completely obsessed with Stephen King. Like, she has all of his books, all of the books his wife wrote, his kids, like all of them. There's bookcases in our living room just stocked full. So when I was pretty young, she was always reading them, and we were able to go to the States and visit his house, and it was the coolest house. It had iron fence, and it was like cobwebs and spiders and bats and everything, all gargoyles all over his house and his fence, and it was like the creepiest yet coolest house I think I've ever seen. And I did get my picture there. I was probably like 7 or so. And then as an adult, I got to go back and visit, but it wasn't as scary as it was when I was little. However, it was still really neat. It's just kind of cool to have somebody to look up to and huge success. And then be able to go to their house and just kind of see where they live. And it makes them a real person, I guess. So yeah, it was pretty neat.
Did you ever read any of his books?
Truth be told, I have not. I'm actually dyslexic, so me and reading we have a love-hate relationship.
Then what would be your favorite Stephen King film?
Oh, Cujo, I think, or Tommy Knockers. Both are terrifying. They keep me up at night even now. But yeah, it is a little creepy too. That darn clown.
Now, as we're sort of wrapping up, Novalea, I just was wondering if you had any advice for anybody who is thinking of trying to reconnect to their culture. I mean, you did it as a teenager, but I'm sure it was a struggle even then trying to connect yourself to be able to move forward. But is there any words of advice out there for our listeners and our watchers that might help them decide that now is the time I'm going to connect? Like, I know that maybe that leap was scary, but in the end result is you get like a huge, large family, right? So what would be some advice that you might give some of our watchers?
I think the starting point would be just to get out there and go to powwows. If you're invited to something, go. Just listen, very much listen. And just enjoy it and take it all in. And like you said, you have no idea what doors are going to be open for you, and you're definitely going to gain a huge family.
That is so very true. And is there any other questions you can think of, Richard?
Now, I guess as we're wrapping up, and this has been a wonderful interview. Thank you, Novalea, for taking the time to meet with us today. As a young Novalea, what would you tell yourself? You know, as a little girl to the Novalea right now, what would you tell yourself?
I think that it's all going to be okay. For sure.
Yeah, sometimes when things are at its darkest, if you just know that you're on the right path, it's just a little bit tricky at times, right? Which is true. Well, thank you so very much, Novalea. I've had so much fun here, being able to talk to you, get to learn more about you, and we really appreciate your time. So thank you so much to everybody for being a part of our amazing show, Voices of Epekwitk, on Eastlink Community TV. And be sure to tune in again for the next episode of our Community Change Makers. We do not like to say goodbye, right, Richard?
Right. Instead, we say Namoltes. So until we meet again, Walalio, everybody. Thank you to all.
Walalio. Thank you.
Go Gojo walking now, 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 Gojo